Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Tomato Timer, where we have a really interesting guest, which we've been trying to coordinate for a while now. It's really good to have you on, Salam. She's the co-founder of ChangeMaker, and she is currently studying an international business administration degree in the Netherlands. And she has a really interesting journey and a really passionate story about gender inequality and how we can kind of work towards a world where it doesn't exist. So it's really, really amazing to have you, Salam. How are you?
Thank you so much, Sabira. I think, yes, we've been coordinating for a while, but I'm really happy that finally we made it and we're here. It's a bit broad to say that I'm fighting for gender equality. Hopefully we will get to that, but it's really an exciting and tough journey.
Absolutely. So I'd love to kick us off with just trying to understand a little bit more of what ChangeMakers does. What was the idea that sparked it, and what are the kind of activities that you conduct?
Yeah. First ChangeMakers started in 2016, and the way it started was actually very, very spontaneous. We were just late on a working day in the office, my best friend and I, a few other colleagues, and then we were just chatting. And at that time, we used to work at the UNFPA, United Nations Population Fund in Syria. And we were having this kind of little chat in the evening with the representative, and he was like, he also shares a lot of inspirational thoughts about gender equality, enabling girls, empowering them to fulfill their potential. So he was like, what can we do to allow more girls in Syria be like girls who code? So he just mentioned girls who code, and he was like, I would be really happy if I leave Syria, and this project is already in the making. Mm-hmm. And then my best friend and I, we were just going back home, but that of course stayed in our heads. So, you know, when you're young, you're so passionate, you're so excited. There's never a moment where you hear a word and you just forget about it. So we kept talking about this, we kept thinking about it. And then also at that time, young people, university students, so we did not have enough money, to pay for a taxi. So we used to go to work. We used to walk to work and then go back home walking.
Oh, wow.
We had a lot of time to talk, to brainstorm, all of that. And then we were just saying, well, maybe we can fund something. Maybe we can start a project or something. And that's how it started. Of course, I would describe my best friend and I as people who always thought of ideas and tried to make them happen. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what we did. We spent hours planning and imagining how this project would look like. And eventually we went there to UNFPA, and we said, this is a project plan. We think we can make it. How can you support us? And the main reason for ChangeMakers, which it was established for or founded for, is to reduce the gender gap in the tech fields, because, as you know, and everyone knows, technology or the tech-based career pathway is very male-dominant. Usually girls are afraid to take this step because sometimes they want to prioritize family. They're making a family, and technology and spending a lot of hours behind the screen sometimes does not mean that you will have enough time for your family. So girls are afraid to take this step. So we wanted to start something to show girls first that there are role models who are very good at doing both. But more importantly, we wanted them to be aware of that field, to know that technology exists and that they are capable of doing exactly the same thing, and then make their own decision. So the main activity for ChangeMakers is to provide programming courses to young people. Very basic at first, and then by that they will kind of formulate an understanding and awareness of the field, and then they make their own decision. But we don't aim to make them professionals in programming, because also we take young people at a very kind of relatively young age. So they are our participants, or our target group is young people between 15 and 18. So they're still in their high school, but this is the perfect timing for them to make their own decision what they want to carry on as a career or an academic pathway.
Absolutely. You're making it, giving that awareness, and sometimes something which is not even allowed to them at all. It's really interesting to kind of expand upon this. The mission is incredible, but also the fact that you essentially set up a startup in the Middle East as a female, and there are lots of challenges of entrepreneurship in the Middle East in general, and in particular for as with some of the kind of the points you've mentioned, for females to take charge. So could you describe some of those challenges, as well as like how were you able to overcome those barriers when you were setting this up?
Yes. Well, first thing, whenever you want to overcome a challenge, it's not only important that you have this energy and stamina and the mindset that everything is doable, but it's also very important to have a network, a supportive network around you. So the most important thing when we used to form a team is that this team shared kind of the same vision. It does not necessarily mean that this team would approve or accept whatever idea we put on the table, but it means that this team has the same positive approach towards challenges, and of course shares the same values. So the achievement of gender equality, that opportunities must be equally distributed to everyone, that they are enablers rather than just people who do their tasks. So that's the first thing. And then there is, of course, a challenge for every female who's trying to do something, right? I think the challenge, if we speak about teams, is how you manage this team or how you lead that team. So for females, it's usually taken as girls being too bossy. So you always need to be careful. Am I too soft? Am I too hard? Am I giving too many instructions? Am I guiding well? Am I not? Am I being an enabler myself? And of course, having this team who shares the same values make it a lot easier. So I would not say that I'm someone who managed the team, but I would say that I'm someone who worked with a very good team who was able to teach me a lot of things and made my journey really worthwhile. So that's the first challenge, but this is also how to tackle it. So the first challenge is having people around you, people whom you can trust and work with. So it's very important to choose people very well, those who share the same values. Of course, other challenges for females, usually from where I come from. So originally, I come from Syria, and that's of course in the Middle East. So yeah, other challenges could be girls are not probably they probably can't, for example, stay out late. There are more hardships to access to fund. It's usually harder for them to travel, but that was kind of a while ago. I think the situation is becoming really different now, because we have more role models of successful women who brought a lot of benefits to their communities. So I don't think that it's the same anymore. It's just a matter of how fast we are able to kind of spread via the multiplier effect, right? So one person creating creating a positive change, and then it's contagious to one another, and then these other people are moving it to or are transferring it to other people. So these are the challenges. But also another challenge for girls is not having enough confidence in themselves. So you can always see girls having less confidence of what they are capable of, what they can do, and how they can do it. But of course, this is not the same, for example, for men. So girls think that they are less capable of leading a team, which is completely untrue. I think it's not about what gender you are. It's about what kind of skills you have, right? So being a man does not make you a leader, and being a woman does not automatically mean that you are not capable of leading people. So this is also another thing. So it's kind of a mix of technical and cultural challenges.
Absolutely. I think just like pick up on the little points through your kind of like conversation was absolutely having people around you that share your mission, values, and drive to the overarching goal is such a big thing. I completely appreciate and feel the same way, because doing what we do, even right now, this podcast is running because there are a bunch of people who are making sure that things go ahead. So I can be the face while I have an incredible team making this happen. So you're absolutely right. Once we have that kind of that sense of belonging and believing the same overarching mission, it just creates an incredible energy. And the final bit, actually, there's a statistic. I'm not sure if I have no idea where I can like find a reference for it, but there was a fact which I heard, and it was really hard to hear, where it was found that there was an incredible gap, or the difference between the number of men who go up to their bosses and ask for a raise in their salary versus women. And it's almost invariable that females won't ask for an increase in salary or pay, or even in many cases even ask for the money that they deserve, especially if they're freelancers or doing contract jobs. They find it difficult to do that. And you're absolutely right. There are these cultural and social challenges, these kind of these mantras that exist that prevent or stifle the energy. And who are better leaders than females, like our mothers, who lead our families and make sure that everything is coming in and running on time. Why cannot they be the best leaders in general? So a lot of things that I completely resonate with you. And sorry, because I'm like kind of like rambling on my own.
No, that's wonderful.
I want to like talk about this other. So you've been obviously looking at female entrepreneurship, and you've also been looking at kind of the space of STEM and where technological awareness is not available or just kind of given as a pathway to girls. Is there a link between the two? Is there a link why there's female entrepreneurship is not as increasing or growing as it should be, versus kind of the ability for them to get into STEM? Have you noticed a link there?
Well, I can't give you a definite answer to that. But what I can tell you is, of course, it's everything is interconnected, right? So when you encourage more girls to go into STEM field, then you're allowing for more ideas to grow. Then you're allowing for diversity. You're celebrating the number of ideas, the vast pool of ideas that you can have. But when you don't allow for girls to venture in one field, then you're overlooking a lot of potential. And just speaking about girls, so of course, according to the World Bank and many other statistics, girls make half of the world's population. So imagine half of the world's population's ideas are disregarded. Then we are stuck with one vision or a one approach to everything, which is not right. So I think it's not just about the linkages between STEM and entrepreneurship. It's about the linkages between everything: entrepreneurship, politics, social life, economic advancement, the medical field, the agriculture, of course, construction, everything. Everything is very interconnected. And just because girls are not quite involved in STEM, then this means you won't see a lot of ideas serving also girls' needs, or sorry, fulfilling girls' needs, because how could men, for example, know what do you need for a period if you don't have it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's one simple example. So we need to celebrate more diversity. We need to embrace it in order to allow for more innovation, and in order, of course, to allow for not just girls but everyone to thrive in whichever field they are good at.
Very, very powerful. I as a fellow One Young World ambassador, I think you remember Professor Muhammad Yunus and his work, where he empowered women in kind of rural parts of Bangladesh by giving them microloans and allowing them to essentially run their family's expenses and businesses, and empowering their work, allowing them to feed themselves, their husbands, their children. And it is again where we are so polarized in our views, or in the way that, because of patriarchal societies, that we've forgotten and really crucial part of society, with regards to health. So many conditions, and not just about females, I'm just mean in general, because of the way research was conducted in earlier eras. Medicine, a lot of research into how our bodies work has always been focused on a very stereotypical male of certain characteristics, and that means we have almost forgotten a huge percentage, or the diversity that exists within our world. I want to come back to the kind of your perspective on the Middle East, because as I grew up there as well, I was really exposed to it. I loved it. I think I don't know where I belong to, because in some ways I belong to those kind of the cultures of sitting down and having kahwa and chai, and all these kind of things. These are part of my being as well. But at the same time, there are lots of kind of cultural barriers within that society. So I was wondering if you could kind of like, because you've been kind of surviving across this the kind of the whole world, global kind of space. How do we kind of keep the tradition and the beautiful kind of cultural stories that we have about, from whether it's religious or from kind of our geographies, but at the same time change the narrative about some of those more dogmatic approaches on how females should conduct themselves?
Yeah. Well, I think this one is a very tough one, because usually our lives are very, I mean, not usually, but in fact, our lives are very influenced by our traditions. And of
Mhm.
course, you see a diversity of traditions, though those which are very, very good about, like, imagine, just like you mentioned, the setting around ahwe and chai. These are like the ones which you grow a sense of belonging to a family.
Yeah.
These emotional attachments, which you don't really find in other places. So, for example, I remember my time when I was back in Syria, still living with my family. We had a specific time after dinner when we all sat, regardless of what we had our cup of tea, we chatted, and then everyone went to pursue whatever they had to do. But we had that specific time, also the time for breakfast, for lunch. They were sacred times. But of course, also there are the other kind of bad influence. I wouldn't say bad traditions, but only bad influence, because it's also not necessarily that the tradition is bad, but maybe the way we interpret it and the way we apply it to our lives. So the stereotypical role of a female, to get married, to get pregnant, to raise the child, but we missed that also the father has a very important role in raising the child, right? Because every child wants to see a superhero, a role model, not just a female, but also a male. So I think it's not just about the tradition, and it's a bit unfair to categorize traditions in bad and good. It's about how we interpret these and also how we transfer them to our offsprings. It's also about the environment around us, how parents told us these stories. So, for example, in my family, I always had this. I saw the stereotypical image of females, but I also was always my awareness was always raised that it's true that a female takes care of the house, but it's also very important that a female learns, educate herself. It might not be the right opportunity at that time for girls to go to universities, to do stuff, but at least they raised my awareness as a child. So I think there's a lot of responsibility on us, the generation of fathers and mothers, for the coming generation, to raise their awareness, to tell them the beautiful stories, and to make sure that they receive these traditions in the best way possible, so that they can interpret them and they can apply them in the best way possible, of course.
I love that. This is such a nice response. I feel like it's there's nothing more to add to it. I want to talk about one other aspect of your life, which is really interesting. We were just chatting about it before we went live. The fact that you were studying a very technical science degree, you were studying biology in Damascus, and then you transitioned to study a degree in business administration here in the Netherlands. So what prompted that? Just tell us the story behind all of that.
Yeah, well, the story is really long, but I'm going to try to make it as short as possible. I wanted to be a genetic engineer. I wanted to be able to modify people's genes. And that's because I thought that maybe there is something we can do to make this world so perfect that everyone has an equal life, everyone is healthy, everyone has as many opportunities as they want, or whatever opportunities they wanted. And of course, I had this in my imagination that I could do it through genetic engineering. So I wanted to become a doctor and then a genetic engineer. My high school grades were not sufficient enough for me to go to med school. So I had to do biology, and I was very unhappy because, of course, in where I come from at that time, it was a doctor or an engineer were very glorified, and other professions were kind of looked at as less professions, which I'm happy to say that this also perspective is changing. So back to my story. So I continued doing biology, and then the crisis, of course, hit the region. So people were kind of went through interrupted education, including myself. And during these interruptions, I was exposed to other experiences. So I got to know TEDx, I got to know Startup Weekend, these kind of social events, and I really found myself there. I found that there is another way to actually change the world. It's by interacting with the human beings. It's by inspiring them and bringing this change, or inspiring for this change. So again, at that time, I did not have enough financial means. So I just accepted reality and kept going to biology, to the faculty of sciences, and doing biology. And then 2 years ago, actually, during the One Young World, I met a guy and we fell in love. And then I decided to come to the Netherlands. And I thought that it's probably the best time for me to just quit because I really did not like it. I did not like biology. I did not find myself there. And I found myself somewhere completely different. I found myself in entrepreneurship and working with other people and founding stuff, establishing new things. So I quit just a few months before graduation. And I packed my things and I came to the Netherlands to start literally fresh.
Wow, that's incredible. That's such a crazy story, but it's such an like kind of like a inspirational story as well. And I think we're coming kind of to the end of the episode. So based off the story and based off everything that you've worked upon, um, I'm sure some students or some people are thinking, especially when they feel like because of many forces or pressures, they feel like they need to do a certain thing or pursue a certain pathway. What kind of piece of advice would you have for them now that you're not just saying an advice, you've actually done it. You've quit months before graduating and started completely fresh. What would you say to them?
Well, this is not always the best thing to do. So please, whoever is watching this, if you think that quitting just before graduation is the best idea, please do not. So this is the first thing. We don't want to be sending false messages. But what I wanted to say is follow your passion to the largest extent you can. So for me, I knew that if I make this choice, I'm going to be happier. And then I just did it because I knew that there was my passion, but I also had my support, my network of support. So my husband supported me. My family did not really support me, just to say that, because they were just too afraid that I'm going to start fresh in a foreign country. What if I lose my opportunity to education? I would not say they actually did not support. I would say that they were just caring and worrying about me, because of course they also wanted the best for me. So make sure that when you take such hard decisions, that you have at least one person who actually who has your back. Not financially, not logistically, but at least emotionally.
Yeah.
And we can see the power of emotional support, not just in doing the things that just as simple as quitting university, but also with cancer survivors. Because also my mom is a cancer survivor, and I think without my father, she wouldn't have been able to make it. So it's very important to know when to quit and what kind of support systems you need, so that you have these also with you, and then you take this step. So it's important to know when and how to take this step.
Amazing. A very, very scientific way of explaining this quitting process as well. Amazing. Thank you so much, Salam. It's been really, really insightful speaking with you. I hope you have a lovely day, and we'll talk later.
Thank you. Thank you. It was my pleasure to be there.
Absolutely. Take care. Bye.
Bye.